Hey, what's up, everybody? Dr. Ray, and today we're talking about ChatGPT. We're going to talk about what this tool is, potential impacts for instructional designers, e-learning developers, ways that we can use this, some of the pitfalls, what this technology really is. We're going to look at it. Like, let's get in and look at the tech, and I'm going to show you because I have a bunch of examples of things that I've done with it as I've really been trying to press this tech to see what it can do. But for those of you that aren't familiar, up on the screen here, I have what ChatGPT is. But basically, it's an AI command center for you to ask questions or ask it to do things, and it spits it out via tech. Very similar in a lot of ways to like those that have Apple Siri on their watch, those that have Amazon Alexa, but it spits it out in a dialogue format, in a text format that's also like pretty good grammar and much more information than you'd expect from like Apple Siri or Amazon Alexa, but in a lot of ways very similar to those kind of tools. So let's take a look at it, and let's take a look at some of the like use cases for IDs that I found for this tool, ways that I think people are going to use it. So first of all, so to get to the tool, all that you do, you can go on the website. All you do is click try right here, but this is the main website page that you're going to see when you get there. But you're going to click try. It's going to ask you to log in or create an account. I simply just used my Google account, which made it much easier. But as soon as you get in, you get to a screen like this. Now, I have some things like already happening here. But basically all it is at the bottom of the screen here, you see this little question. Place a type that I'm typing. That's all the tool is. You literally just type and ask it a question. So what I've done, instead of me like doing like a bunch of samples and waiting for it to spit out the information, because it takes 2 to like 5 seconds, maybe 10 seconds, I just went ahead and did a bunch of stuff and already have it all saved here, so you can just see what it did. All right, so one of the cool cases that I started to think about, like, well, how can instructional designers use this? And one of the best ways, I think, there are really two best use cases for us for this tool that I think were really good. I think there's going to be lots of like other little ways that we can use it and stuff like that. But I think in general, like a day-to-day use, I think there are 2 ways that I thought it was super cool. And one of them was idea generation. For example, create a scenario. This is my question to it. Create a scenario where the manager needs to address an employee for coming into the office late. Here's what it spit out. Imagine you're a manager at a small marketing firm. One of your employees, Sarah, has been coming on office consistently. As her manager, it's your responsibility. Here's how the scenario might play out. Super cool. Like, they gave me like a nice scenario. These are like the types of things that in training take forever for us to think about. We spend a lot of time on this, and it, at the very least, it's given me an idea for a scenario. I can take this, take what it's written here, copy and paste this, and modify it for my own use. So that idea is awesome. Next thing I think is really cool, I told it to write 2 multiple choice questions based on the scenario that it spit out right here. So you can see I pasted the whole scenario right here. And here were the questions. Now, whether or not these questions are good, this scenario was really short. So the questions were okay. But the fact that it writes questions and gives me some options is great, because I can, again, very easily modify, use some, delete some. But it gives me a nice starting point. That starting point is better than having nothing. So it can write multiple choice questions, not saying they're going to be good, not saying they're going to assess your objectives, all that good stuff, but they're not terrible. The fact that it does it is nice. I did a bunch of other stuff. Oh, let me go to the top here. I asked it, what is instructional design? It gave me a nice big explanation. I said, create a scenario where an instructional designer should use Gagne's 9 events of instruction, and it actually was able to do that. It gave me a scenario. Imagine a company's launching a new product, and then it tells me all the steps that one would take in Gagne's 9 events, which was pretty cool. I imagined I was a new instructional designer and like working on my portfolio and had no idea where to start. And I said, create an action plan for a new instructional designer creating their first e-learning module. And it went through and gave me an action plan. Said, 1, First step, define the learning objectives and desired outcomes. Okay, that's not terrible. I mean, I would say the first step is define what your problem is. What are you going to actually solve? But this isn't terrible. It goes through and gives you basic, like in basic Addy-ish type of rundown of what this person should do, who has no clue where to start. So that's kind of cool. It created an action plan for you. I tried to get it, like, ask it some like complicated questions, like how do you determine ROI of a training module? And it said you calculate here are the costs, you calculate the benefits, and then how you figure out the equation from there. So it wasn't terrible. It's not like some magic answer, but it gives someone a basic starting point of how you would calculate it. This really was not a bad answer at all. How do you estimate the cost of a training module? It did okay here, but again, it's giving me decent answers for these kind of questions that someone might get on an interview. Someone might be asked who's new to ID and doesn't know. I asked it what a good joke e-learning developers like. I was thinking like, oh, if I'm doing like a presentation and I need a joke to start out. These jokes were really bad. Why was the e-learning developer always calm? Because he had a lot of course control. I guess that's okay. That's not bad. It's not funny. I asked it another one and it was terrible. Yeah, these two jokes were really bad. Then we get into, so that's like the first big thing, like use case for us. I think that it does like scenarios and questions on them really well. And I think it can also help us with things like not sure where to start, not sure what we should be doing. Very similar to Google and when I type in like Gagne's 9 events, but I can make it very specific to my situation to help me out a little bit. And it kind of, the way the writing appears on here, it's like it's written more like a encyclopedia, like trying to teach you, versus like, you know, when I ask Apple Siri something and it just sounds like a robot talking to me, which I liked a little better. All right. Moving on. I got into some use cases, which I think are also useful for instructional designers. And this is really the big second thing. So the first thing was like the scenarios and the assessments, and the plans. And the second thing is really scripting. It's some of the software that we use as IDs. We need to script, and most IDs that I train I don't train computer programmers. I might teach them some basic HTML. Now I do have a programming background, but most IDs do not. And me having a program background doesn't mean I can program off the top of my head because I'm not doing it every day. I am not sitting there just programming 24/7. So like, it's something I need to look up all the time and remember how to do it. So I just created a few like snippets of code that one might need when doing something, like an articulate or whatever, and you need like a JavaScript code or something like that. You can even ask it questions about the code, like what would I need? So like, here's what I asked. I said, write a JavaScript code for a timer that stops and pings the user at 1 minute. So like a 1 minute timer. They said, here's a JavaScript code that will stop a timer after 1 minute and alert the user. And boom, look at that. They wrote the code and you can even copy the code. How cool is that? I mean, just wrote it in like 1 second, and then they tell you what the code is so that you can change things. I said, okay, let's see how complicated this thing is. I said, create a Python script that pulls the top 3 locations with the highest rainfall for the day in North Carolina and displays them on a web page. Like, I'm trying to get pretty specific. Like, this involves like the API and like a bunch of stuff that is not simple. So what they do is they actually tell you like what you need to do, like the logic behind writing this code. Like first, next, you'll need to do this, then you'll need to do this. And then they give you a sample, which this is actually not bad. I can take this, and assuming I have an API key here, I can actually go in, edit this, and basically spit this out, and wrote the code for me. I was pretty impressed that it spit this out. Then I decided to ask it like some more complicated questions, like some math questions. I pulled like some SAT math questions and it was able to answer them pretty quickly, giving you the answer. I asked it to write it some algorithms to see what it would do. I asked it to write an algorithm for basically like information processing, like how we process information in the brain. And it did a good job of at least describing it. And then I asked it to write it, since it wrote it like in text here, I said write it in a mathematical form, and it said it's really, that it can't do it. So it just kind of regurgitated itself here. I wanted to see what else it could do. I said create a picture of a flower with letters. I don't really know how that's a flower, but anyway, it drew something. Was okay. So there's just lots and lots. I mean, anything you can think of it doing, like, how can this improve my work, was really the question I kept asking it. Like, and I think that the idea generation, especially for scenarios, is one of the better things. Writing up long emails, helping to start reports and things like that. It could potentially help you brainstorm or create a draft of something for you. But I did notice some things that it did that I didn't like. For example, I said in a few sentences, describe cognitive load theory and use citations. Then I said in a paragraph, describe cognitive load theory. Now, what you'll notice is that both of these paragraphs are pretty much identical. They'll change, like, okay, let me just show you. Cognitive load theory is a theory of learning that explains how the amount of mental effort that is required to learn or perform a task can affect the effectiveness of learning or performance. Cognitive load theory is a theory that explains the mental effort that is required to learn or perform a task can affect the effectiveness of learning or performance. So what happens here is that it changes some unimportant words. For example, cognitive load theory is a theory that explains how the amount of mental effort is required, and here they wrote mental effort that is required. So effort that is, oh, they wrote that here, required to learn or perform a task can affect the effectiveness of learning, or that's the exact same sentence. Yeah, there's nothing different about those two sentences. Let's even look at the next one. According to the theory, there are 3 types of cognitive load. The theory suggests that there are 3 types of, so you see, like, the theory suggests versus according to the theory. But the content that they've written is exactly the same. So this scares me a little bit about this software. What scares me about it is I've realized that you definitely could not take something from here and assume that it is unique. Assume that it's not been taken and copyrighted or whatever. Assume that what you've written can be advertised or taken and used for commercial spaces, because it's available to other people that ask the same exact question. So that's something that I think is really going to affect, like, the way you could potentially use things in commercial spaces, and like for those in K to 12, like your students copying and stuff like that. That when you ask it the same question, it kind of gives the same response. It might change some words here and there, like the theory suggests and according to the theory, but overall it's duplicating itself. So that's a big issue if you were going to use this in some way. So it's something to consider and something that I think is problematic. The other thing that I noticed about this, and it's something with, because this is supposed to be like a beta version, like a test version or a beta version that people are using right now, is that the information in here is not using the internet to search and learn. Right now, what it's doing is it's using information that stopped in like around 2000, at some point in 2021. So like it can't pick up like new world events and talk about new things that might have changed. So the information that we're seeing right now in ChatGPT is limited to about 2021. So kind of be aware of that. It's apparently something that they can change, but they just haven't, or they have to like turn it on. The other interesting thing about ChatGPT that you'll see as you look at this software, and let me go to it, when you scroll down and learn about their company, you have to realize about us is that Oh, I was already at about. OpenAI is an AI research and development company. This isn't a nonprofit company. This isn't a um, like a government agency sponsoring this, or like a school or like university where like they're creating something that's going to be like freely available for everyone to use. This is a company and they need to figure out how to make money. So when you scroll down, you see that they have some other tools. And you also see that they also have pricing for some of these other tools. The other thing, like when you go to ChatGPT, as I'm here right now, you can open up their Discord and stuff like that. This is a free, on the bottom of the page right here, free research keyword preview. So someone asked, I don't know if it was the president or one of the people at the company, if this tool was always going to be free. And their response was, well, we need to figure out how to monetize it at some point. So does that mean it's going to be monetized the way Google search engine is monetized, and like there will be ads like on the side here and that's how they'll monetize it? Or does that mean there's going to be a fee for use? So while I think this is a great tool and cool to use, I wouldn't like bank on it being available in 6 months or a year from now. So like I wouldn't be like, oh, I can take this job because this thing's going to write everything for me. Like I'd assume like it can help you right now in some ways, but it may not be as easy for you to access in at some point in time. So just be aware of that in the back of your mind. I think those are the two or three really big issues, just about the pay, access, that this is a research preview, and that the information I wouldn't really use for commercial use unless you're like, you got to be really careful about that, because the content wasn't written by you and it can be duplicated by someone just else asking the same exact question. So like, who owns this content that this just spit out right here? Who owns that? Do I own it because I'm the one that asked the question? Or does this, most likely I would assume OpenAI.com owns the content because their tool is the one that created the content. I don't know, and that's like a going to be a good question, like who owns that? Especially because if someone else asks the exact same question, they're going to get the exact same answer. So that's a little interesting. But overall, I mean, the tool's really cool. It's fun to play around with. I mean, I just kept asking it all kinds of questions. I did notice that the tool itself was going down a bunch today. I assume like tons and tons of people are on it. Like, I mean, but you can ask it any question. Like, what is, I was asking it like, what is instructional design? What are the multimedia principles? And it might be down. It was down earlier. So like it keeps like, I click something and it'll say like tool is down, but you can get an idea right here for how long it actually takes to think. Like it takes like anywhere from like 2 to like 15 seconds. You can see it's now spitting out the content. Oh, it's telling me all, well, it's telling me some. Huh. That's not what I was talking about when I said multimedia principles, but sometimes you need to like ask it something and then keep like going on to that, like asking it more and more and getting more and more specific. Yeah, and you can see it's like making it long. So sometimes I would say like write a paragraph only. But anyway, yeah, I mean, it does a good job. Like, I'm pretty impressed. Like, the fact that I was typing it, asking it for scenarios, like, you could even say, like, give me several common corporate HR problems. Just to start like if you're developing a portfolio and you're like, I want some like good portfolio ideas, like this is it kind of helps you out pretty well. Like I am impressed by what the tool does. I definitely do not think the tool is perfect. I do see some use cases for it. Even like if I have to type up like a long email and I'm not quite sure what to say, I mean, I think that it could potentially be used there, but I really like the server experience. I've been getting a lot of this error as the server's been going through. I don't want to restart the page because then I'll lose all these examples here. But what I've been having to do is open up a new window or restart everything. So I am getting a lot of like server errors today for some odd reason, which I haven't been getting. I guess because more and more people are starting to use the tool and play around with it. So I think that they're just not able to handle the traffic well. So keep that in mind as well as the tool gets more powerful. There's going to be some growing pains with the tool that you're going to experience. They do have a Discord that you can access. For those of you not on Discord, it's just basically a chat place. I use it for everything. So I'd encourage you to go on their Discord if you're really interested in the tool and looking for things to do. But I would love to hear like ways that you all have used this tool or see potential to use it in your jobs, because as an ID, all of our jobs are so vastly different from one another that I do lots of like high level stuff, but you might be in there in the thick of things, like doing lots of development and have a different case. So I love hearing like ways that you all can use it. But yeah, that's my video. Those are some of the things that I've run into, some of the advantages, uses, and disadvantages of the tool that I'm seeing right now. And as always, this video is created in December of 2022. In March of 2023, everything I just went through might be much different because they might have a pricing scheme, tool might be better, all kinds of different stuff. So be aware of that as you watch this in the future. Later all.